Chapter 1. Pancakes and Plotting. Bryant had a theory about mornings. They were designed by sadists. Not the kind you read about in crime novels, but the kind who thought it was funny to make coffee taste like heaven while ensuring you never had enough time to drink it hot. He stared at the mug in his hand, lukewarm and bitter, as the sound of chaos erupted from the hallway. Bobby, his 8-year-old son, was sprinting past the kitchen doorway wearing a cape fashioned from a bath towel. Melody, 6 years old and powered by rainbows and sugar, followed close behind, clutching Marvin, the stuffed leprechaun who had seen better days. Dad. Bobby skidded into the kitchen, socks sliding on the linoleum like a stunt driver. Melody says leprechauns can't fly. Tell her Marvin can fly. Ryan raised an eyebrow. Marvin looks like he's retired from flying, buddy. Melody gasped, clutching Marvin to her chest like Ryan had just insulted royalty. He's magical. He can do anything. Ryan smiled, setting his mug down and flipping the last pancake onto a plate. Okay. Marvin can fly, but only if he eats his breakfast first. Melody narrowed her eyes, suspicious. Marvin doesn't like syrup. Marvin doesn't have taste buds, Ryan countered, sliding the plate toward her. You do. So eat. Bobby plopped into his chair, cape trailing behind him like a fallen hero. Dad, can we go to the park after school? Amy said she's bringing her new soccer ball. Ryan glanced at the clock. 7:15 a.m. He had exactly 20 minutes to get 2 kids dressed, fed, and out the door without losing his sanity or his job. We'll see. If you promise not to turn the living room into a wrestling ring again. Bobby grinned, syrup dripping from his fork. No promises. Ryan shook his head, amused despite himself. 5 years ago, mornings like this had felt impossible. Back then, he'd been drowning in silence. Linda's silence, the kind that stretched across oceans and time zones until it swallowed everything. He'd spent nights staring at his phone, waiting for a call that never came, wondering what he'd done wrong. Now his life was loud, messy, sticky with syrup and laughter. And he wouldn't trade it for anything. Almost anything. The thought slipped in before he could stop it. He shoved it away, focusing on Melody, who was now negotiating with Marvin about whether pancakes counted as vegetables. Ryan had learned early on that parenting was 10% logic and 90% improvisation. He was good at improvising. Mostly. Dad, Bobby said through a mouthful of pancake. Are you ever going to get married again? Ryan froze, spatula in midair. What? You know, Bobby continued, oblivious to the grenade he'd just lobbed into the kitchen. Like in the movies, where the dad meets a lady and they fall in love and then everyone gets a dog. Melody perked up. I want a dog. Ryan set the spatula down slowly, like it might explode. I don't think life works like the movies, buddy. Why not? Bobby asked. You're nice. You make pancakes. That's like husband stuff. Ryan laughed, but it sounded hollow even to him. Thanks, champ. But right now, I've got enough on my plate. Melody tilted her head. You have pancakes on your plate. Ryan grinned despite the knot in his chest. Exactly. By the time he dropped the kids at school and pulled into the elementary parking lot, Ryan had almost convinced himself the conversation was over. Kids asked random questions all the time. It didn't mean anything, except it did. Because when he walked into the teacher's lounge, his sister Laura was waiting for him with a smile that could only mean trouble. Morning, big brother, she sang, sipping coffee like she owned the place. How's my favorite single dad? Ryan groaned. Laura, what are you doing here? Just dropping off Amy's permission slip, she said innocently. Then, with a grin that was anything but innocent, and checking in on your love life. Ryan blinked. My what now? Laura leaned against the counter, eyes sparkling with mischief. Don't play dumb. Mom's birthday plan is in motion. Ryan's stomach sank. Birthday plan. Oh, you know, Laura said casually. Operation. Get Ryan a girlfriend before he turns 38. Ryan stared at her. That's not a plan. That's a violation of human rights. Laura smirked. Tell it to Mom. She's determined. And honestly, she's right. You've been single for 5 years, Ree. It's time. Ryan rubbed his temples. I have 2 kids. A full-time job. I don't have time for love. Laura finished, arching a brow. Please. You make time for PTA meetings and soccer practice. You can make time for dinner with someone who isn't under 4 feet tall. Ryan opened his mouth to argue, but Laura held up a hand. Don't worry. I've got the perfect candidate. Ryan groaned. Laura, Debbie, she said, like it was the answer to everything. Ryan blinked. Debbie? As in your best friend Debbie. Laura grinned. She's single. She's smart. She's funny. And, bonus, she's had a crush on you since high school. Ryan felt his ears burn. Laura. No. Laura ignored him, pulling out her phone. She's coming to Mom's dinner on Saturday. We're something nice. Ryan stared at her, horrified. You're kidding. Laura winked. You'll thank me later. That night, after the kids were asleep and the house was quiet, Ryan sat on the couch staring at the ceiling. He could still hear Bobby's question echoing in his head. Are you ever going to get married again? He didn't know the answer. All he knew was that the idea of dating again felt like standing at the edge of a cliff. Terrifying, uncertain, and maybe, just maybe, a little exciting. Ryan sighed, running a hand through his hair. What's the worst that could happen? He muttered. From the hallway, Marvin's button eyes glinted in the dark like he knew the answer. Chapter 2. The dinner ambush. Bryant had survived parent-teacher conferences, science fair disasters, and Melody's brief obsession with glitter glue, His couch still sparkled under certain light. But nothing, prepared him for the battlefield known as family dinner at Mom's house. He stood on the porch, holding a bottle of wine like a peace offering. Bobby and Melody flanked him, dressed in their Sunday best. Bobby wore a button-up shirt that made him look like a miniature accountant, while Melody twirled in a rainbow dress that could signal aircraft from space. "Dad," Bobby whispered, eyeing the door like it might bite. "Why do we have to dress fancy for Grandma's spaghetti?" Ryan adjusted his tie, which felt like a noose. "Because Grandma likes fancy." Melody grinned. "I like fancy too. Marvin's fancy." She held up the stuffed leprechaun, now sporting a bow tie Ryan had sacrificed from his own closet. Marvin looked like he was attending a wedding in Ireland. Ryan knocked. The door swung open, and Cynthia Bryant, his mother, the human embodiment of sunshine, beamed at them. "There's my handsome boy and my beautiful grandbabies." She swept Melody into a hug, then kissed Bobby's forehead. Come in. Dinner's almost ready." Ryan stepped inside, scanning for Laura. If his sister was anywhere near, trouble wasn't far behind. He didn't have to look long. Laura was in the kitchen, stirring sauce like she was auditioning for a cooking show. When she saw Ryan, her grin widened. You made it." She wiped her hands and hugged him, then whispered, "Debbie's already here." Ryan froze mid-hug. "Laura, don't start," she said sweetly, then turned to Melody. "Hey, princess. Love the dress." Ryan followed her into the dining room, where the table was set like a magazine spread. Candles flickered, flowers bloomed in a vase, and at the far end, chatting with Cynthia, sat Debbie. Ryan hadn't seen her in years. She looked different, not in a bad way, just older, softer around the edges, like life had sanded down the sharp corners. Her chestnut hair framed her face, and when she laughed at something Cynthia said, Ryan felt a strange tug in his chest. Laura elbowed him. "Close your mouth, Romeo." Ryan scowled. "Laura, play nice," she whispered, then sailed off to refill drinks. Ryan took a breath and approached the table. Debbie looked up, and for a second, her smile faltered, just a flicker, before it returned, warm and bright. "Ryan," she said. "Wow, it's been forever." "Yeah," Ryan replied, suddenly aware of how awkward his hands felt. "Forever and a half." Debbie laughed, and the sound was like a memory. High school football games, late-night diner runs, Laura dragging him along because Debbie was there. Back then, Ryan had been oblivious. Now, he wasn't sure what he was. "Sit," Cynthia said, patting the chair next to Debbie. Of course, because fate and his mother were cruel. Ryan slid into the seat, Melody climbing onto his lap like a human shield. Bobby took the chair across from him, already eyeing the breadbasket like it owed him money. Dinner started innocently enough. Spaghetti, meatballs, Melody telling a dramatic story about Marvin saving her from a dragon, which turned out to be the neighbor's cat. Bobby chiming in with sound effects. Ryan relaxed, almost. Then Cynthia struck. "So, Debbie," she said, ladling sauce like a general loading ammunition. "You're still single, right?" Ryan choked on his water. Debbie's cheeks flushed pink. Yeah. Ryan's single too," Cynthia continued, smiling like she'd just solved world hunger. "Isn't that funny?" Ryan shot his mother a look that could melt steel. She ignored it. Laura jumped in, grinning. "Funny and convenient." Debbie laughed nervously, twisting her napkin. "Well, I guess." Ryan cleared his throat. "Mom, oh, don't mom me," Cynthia said. "You're 37, Ryan. 38 next month. You need someone to take care of you." Ryan gestured to Bobby and Melody. "I've got two someones. They're kids," Cynthia said. "They can't cook you a decent meal." "Hey," Bobby protested. "I made toast yesterday." Ryan groaned. Debbie smiled, and for some reason, that made it worse. Or better. He wasn't sure. After dinner, Ryan escaped to the porch under the pretense of getting some air. He leaned against the railing, staring at the stars, wondering if it was too late to move to Alaska. The door creaked. Debbie stepped out, hugging herself against the cool night. "Mind if I join you?" she asked. Ryan hesitated, then nodded. "Sure." She stood beside him, quiet for a moment. Then, "Your kids are amazing." Ryan smiled despite himself. "They're something." Debbie laughed softly. "You're doing a great job, Ryan." The words hit harder than he expected. He swallowed. "Thanks." Silence stretched, comfortable this time. Ryan glanced at her, catching the way the porch light haloed her hair. For a second, he wondered what it would be like. Just wondered, before Bobby's voice shattered the moment. "Dad." Melody put spaghetti in Marvin's hat. Ryan sighed. "Parenthood," he muttered, heading inside. Debbie watched him go, a small smile playing on her lips. Chapter 3. The PDA Trap. Ryan Bryant had a list of things he hated. Glitter, still embedded in his couch, cold coffee, and surprise ambushes. Tonight, he was about to experience all three, minus the glitter, though he wouldn't bet against Melody finding a way to add it. The PDA meeting was supposed to be simple. Show up, not at the budget talk, volunteer for something low risk like snack coordinator, and leave before anyone noticed he was the only dad in the room. That was the plan. The plan died the moment he walked into the school library and saw Laura waving like a lighthouse in a storm. Over here," she called, grinning like she'd just won the lottery. Ryan groaned inwardly. "Why are you here?" he muttered as he slid into the chair beside her. "Because I'm a concerned parent," Laura said sweetly. "And because Debbie's here." Ryan stiffened. "Laura, relax," she whispered, eyes sparkling. This isn't a date. It's proximity training. Ryan stared at her. That's not a thing. It is now, Laura said, then turned to greet Debbie, who was walking toward them with a smile that made Ryan's stomach do something weird, like a somersault or a panic attack. Hey, Ryan, Debbie said, settling into the chair across from him. Didn't know you were on the PDA. Ryan cleared his throat. Oh yeah? I'm involved. Laura snorted. Ryan kicked her under the table. The meeting started, and Ryan tried to focus on the agenda. He really did. But every time Debbie laughed at a joke or brushed her hair behind her ear, his brain short-circuited. He was 37 years old, a grown man, and yet here he was, acting like a teenager at prom. Next item, the PDA president announced. Volunteers for the fall festival. Ryan froze. He knew that tone. That tone meant trap ahead. Laura's hand shot up like a missile. Ryan will help. Ryan whipped his head toward her. Laura, and Debbie too. Laura added, smiling innocently. You two can run the games booth together. Ryan opened his mouth to protest, but the PDA president was already writing their names down. Perfect. Ryan and Debbie, games booth. Debbie laughed softly. Guess we're a team. Ryan managed a weak smile. Guess so. Laura leaned in, whispering, You're welcome. Ryan considered strangling her with the PDA sign-up sheet. Later, as they walked to the parking lot, Debbie fell into step beside him. The night air was crisp, carrying the scent of fallen leaves and distant popcorn from the football game. So, she said, hands in her jacket pockets. Games booth, huh? Ryan chuckled nervously. Yeah, should be fun. Debbie glanced at him, her smile warm. You don't seem like the carnival type. Ryan shrugged. I'm more of the keep kids from eating glue type. Debbie laughed, and Ryan felt that weird tug again, the one he'd felt on the porch at Mom's house. He didn't know what it meant. He wasn't sure he wanted to. But when Debbie said, I'm glad we'll get to hang out, Ryan found himself saying, Me too, before he could stop himself. Back home, Ryan collapsed on the couch. Bobby was building a Lego fortress on the coffee table, Melody was coloring Marvin's hat with neon markers, and Ryan was wondering how his life had turned into a romantic comedy without his consent. Dad, Bobby said, not looking up. You like Debbie, don't you? Ryan blinked. What? You smiled weird, Bobby said. Like when you see pizza. Ryan stared at his son. Go to bed. Bobby grinned. You totally like her. Ryan groaned, burying his face in a pillow. Melody patted his arm sympathetically. It's okay, Daddy. Marvin says love is magic. Ryan peeked at Marvin, who now had a rainbow hat and a smug expression stitched into his fabric face. Great, Ryan muttered. Even the leprechaun's in on it. Chapter 4. The birthday plot thickens. Ryan Bryant had never trusted the quiet. In his house, silence was the prelude to chaos. Usually, it meant Bobby was engineering something that would either involve duct tape or a questionable amount of glitter, and Melody was his willing accomplice. But this morning, the quiet wasn't coming from the kids, it was coming from his phone. He stared at the text from Laura. Don't make plans for Saturday night. Trust me. Ryan frowned. Trust Laura? That was like trusting Bobby with a box of fireworks. He typed back. Why? 3 dots appeared, then vanished. Then appeared again, then vanished. Finally, because you deserve fun. And maybe love. Ryan groaned and tossed the phone onto the couch. Love? He muttered, like it was a 4-letter word. Which, technically it was. Daddy. Melody peeked around the corner, Marvin dangling from her arm like a limp green rag. Why are you talking to the couch? Ryan smiled. Because the couch listens better than Aunt Laura. Melody tilted her head. Does the couch tell jokes? Only when Bobby sits on it, Ryan said. As if summoned, Bobby barreled into the room wearing a cape made from a bath towel and a pair of sunglasses that were far too big for his face. Dad, Melody and I have decided we're superheroes now. Our mission is to protect you from evil. Ryan raised an eyebrow. What kind of evil? The kind that makes you wear fancy clothes and talk about feelings, Bobby said gravely. Ryan laughed. Sounds terrifying. It is, Bobby said. So if Aunt Laura tries to make you do anything weird, we'll stop her. Ryan ruffled his son's hair. Thanks, buddy. I'll keep that in mind. Later that day, Ryan's mom, Cynthia, was waiting for him at the school gym after his last class. She had that look, the one that meant she was about to meddle in the nicest possible way. Hi, sweetheart, she said, handing him a container of homemade cookies. You look tired. I teach 3rd graders dodgeball, Ryan said. I'm lucky to be alive. She smiled. You need a break. A night out. With someone who makes you laugh. Ryan sighed. Mom, before you say no, Cynthia interrupted. Laura and I have already arranged something. Ryan froze. Arranged what? A little get-together. Nothing fancy. Just friends. Ryan narrowed his eyes. Friends like Laura's friends? Cynthia's smile widened. Debbie will be there. Ryan's stomach did a weird flip. Debbie, Laura's best friend. The one who always seemed to blush when he said hello. The one who had a laugh that made him feel like he'd just heard the best joke in the world. Mom. Ryan rubbed the back of his neck. I'm not. You're not ready? Honey, you've been not ready for 5 years. Cynthia touched his arm gently. You deserve happiness. And the kids deserve to see you happy. Ryan looked away, his chest tightening. He thought about Bobby and Melody, about how much they depended on him, about how badly he didn't want to mess up their lives. I'll think about it, he said finally. That's all I ask, Cynthia said, kissing his cheek. And maybe we're something that isn't a school polo. Saturday night, Ryan stood in front of his closet like a man facing a firing squad. Bobby and Melody were perched on the bed, supervising. "That shirt makes you look like a dad," Bobby said, pointing to a blue button-down. "I am a dad," Ryan said. "Yeah, but you're supposed to look like a cool dad," Bobby replied. Melody hugged Marvin. "We're the green one. Green is lucky." Ryan chuckled. "Lucky, huh?" "Marvin says so," Melody said solemnly. Ryan picked the green shirt. "Because when your 6-year-old and her stuffed leprechaun give fashion advice, you listen." The restaurant was cozy, with warm lighting and the smell of garlic bread drifting through the air. Ryan spotted Laura waving from a corner booth, her grin way too smug. Next to her sat Debbie, looking, well, stunning. Her dark hair framed her face, and her smile was shy but genuine. Ryan's pulse kicked up a notch. He reminded himself to breathe. "Ryan," Laura chirped as he approached. "You made it." "Against my better judgment," Ryan muttered, sliding into the booth. Debbie laughed softly, and Ryan felt that weird flip in his stomach again. Laura launched into conversation like a cruise director on caffeine, but Ryan barely heard her. He was too busy noticing how Debbie's eyes crinkled when she smiled, how she listened like every word mattered. When Laura excused herself to check on dessert, Ryan and Debbie were left alone. "So," Debbie said, fiddling with her napkin. "Laura tells me you've been busy with the kids." Ryan smiled. "They keep me on my toes. Bobby's planning world domination, and Melody thinks her stuffed leprechaun has magical powers." Debbie laughed, and Ryan felt something loosen in his chest. "Sounds like fun," she said. "It is," Ryan admitted. "Most days." He hesitated, then added, "I'm not great at this. The whole dating thing." Debbie's eyes softened. "Neither am I." For a moment, they just looked at each other. And Ryan thought, maybe, just maybe, this wasn't such a bad idea after all. Chapter 5. Operation Save Dad. Ryan woke up Sunday morning to the sound of whispering. Whispering was never good. Whispering meant plans. And plans, in his house, meant trouble. He rolled out of bed and followed the voices to the living room. Bobby and Melody were huddled together on the couch, Marvin propped between them like a green general overseeing a mission. "Okay," Bobby said, tapping a notebook with a pencil. "Step 1. Sabotage Dad's excuses." Melody nodded solemnly. "What's a sabotage?" "It means we make sure Dad can't say no," Bobby explained. "If Aunt Laura tries to set him up again, we help." Ryan cleared his throat. "Help with what?" Two guilty faces turned toward him. Bobby grinned like he'd been caught stealing cookies. Melody hugged Marvin tighter. "Morning, Dad," Bobby said, way too cheerful. "We were just planning breakfast." Ryan crossed his arms. "Planning breakfast requires a notebook?" Yes," Bobby offered. Ryan raised an eyebrow, but let it slide. He'd learned long ago that interrogating Bobby only led to more elaborate lies. "Fine. Breakfast planners, get dressed. We're going to the park." At the park, the crisp autumn air smelled like leaves and distant bonfires. Melody skipped ahead, Marvin bouncing in her grip, while Bobby walked beside Ryan, unusually quiet. "You had fun last night?" Bobby asked casually. Ryan glanced down. "It was nice." "Nice like, I want to see her again nice?" Bobby pressed. Ryan chuckled. "You're 8. Why do you care?" "Because you're my dad," Bobby said matter-of-factly. "And you smile more when you talk about her." Ryan's chest tightened. He hadn't realized he was smiling. "It's complicated, buddy." Bobby shrugged. "Life's complicated. Melody says Marvin thinks you should go for it." Ryan laughed. "Marvin, huh?" "Yep. He's wise," Bobby said with a straight face. Ryan shook his head, but inside, something warm flickered. Maybe Bobby was right. Maybe he did want to see Debbie again. Back at home, Ryan was grading papers at the kitchen table when Laura barged in without knocking, because Laura never knocked. "Good news," she announced, dropping a bag of groceries on the counter. "Debbie loved seeing you last night." Ryan froze mid-red pen stroke. "Laura, don't Laura me," she said, wagging a finger. "You two were adorable. And guess what? She's free next Friday." Ryan groaned. "I'm not." "Yes, you are," Laura cut in. "Because I already told her you'd call." Ryan stared at her. "You what?" Laura grinned. "You're welcome." Before Ryan could respond, Bobby and Melody burst into the kitchen wearing matching sunglasses and capes. "Operation Save Dad is a go," Bobby declared. Laura blinked. "Operation what?" "Nothing," Ryan said quickly, shooting Bobby a look. Bobby just grinned wider. Later that night, Ryan sat on the porch after the kids went to bed, nursing a cup of coffee and staring at the stars. He thought about Debbie, her laugh, the way she listened, the way she didn't look at him like he was broken. He wanted to call her. He was terrified to call her. Inside, he heard giggles. He peeked through the window and saw Bobby and Melody sneaking his phone off the counter. Ryan sighed. "What are you two doing?" "Helping," Bobby said innocently. Ryan walked in and plucked the phone from his son's hand. "Helping me accidentally text my boss?" "No," Bobby said. "Helping you text Debbie." Ryan stared at him. "You were going to text Debbie?" "Yep," Bobby said proudly. "We wrote the message and everything." Ryan opened the draft. It read, "Hi Debbie. Want to get pizza and talk about leprechauns?" Ryan laughed so hard he had to sit down. Melody beamed. Marvin helped. Ryan shook his head, still smiling. "You two are impossible." "Impossible but awesome," Bobby said. "So, are you going to send it?" Ryan looked at the message, then at his kids. And for the first time in a long time, he thought, maybe he would. Chapter 6. Operation Cupid Goes Rogue. Ryan Bryant had survived parent-teacher conferences, Bobby's science fair volcano, which had erupted in the living room, and Melody's insistence that Marvin the leprechaun needed his own seatbelt in the car. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared him for the ambush waiting in his kitchen on Saturday morning. He walked in, bleary-eyed, craving coffee, and stopped dead. Laura was there. Cynthia was there. Bobby and Melody were there. And they were all wearing matching t-shirts that said, "Mission, make Dad smile." Ryan blinked. "What is happening?" Laura grinned like a cat who'd swallowed a canary. "Family meeting." Ryan groaned. Those words should come with a warning label. Cynthia patted his arm. "Sweetheart, we're just concerned. You've been working so hard, and you deserve happiness." Ryan opened his mouth to argue, but Bobby beat him to it. "We made a plan, Dad. It's called Operation Cupid." Ryan stared at his son. "Operation what?" "Cupid," Bobby repeated proudly. "We're gonna help you fall in love." Melody bounced in her chair. Marvin clutched to her chest. "Marvin says it's a good idea." Ryan rubbed his temples. "I don't need help falling in love." Laura smirked. "Judging by the last 5 years, you might." Ryan shot her a look. "You're enjoying this way too much." "Absolutely," Laura said. "Now, here's the plan." Ryan held up a hand. "No plans. No missions." "No, too late," Bobby said, sliding a piece of paper across the table. It was covered in crayon drawings and bullet points like, "Step 1, make Dad look cool. Step 2, invite Debbie to dinner. Step 3, don't let Dad chicken out." Ryan groaned again. "You guys are relentless." Cynthia smiled sweetly. "We prefer dedicated." Later that day, Ryan tried to shake off the morning's insanity, but it followed him like glitter after a craft project. Everywhere he went, Bobby and Melody whispered like spies. Laura texted him winking emojis. And Cynthia kept humming love songs while folding laundry. By evening, Ryan was almost relieved when Laura called and said, "Dinner at my place. Casual. Bring the kids." Casual, his foot. When Ryan arrived, the dining room looked like a Pinterest board exploded. Candles, flowers, and a playlist of romantic classics. Bobby and Melody were dressed like they were attending a royal ball. And Debbie was there, wearing a soft sweater that made Ryan forget how to breathe for a second. "Laura," Ryan muttered as he set down the casserole he'd brought. "Define casual." Laura grinned. "Casual, with ambience." Ryan shot her a look that said, "I know what you're doing." She just winked. Dinner chaos. Dinner started normal enough, if you ignored Bobby whispering to Melody like they were plotting world domination. Ryan tried to focus on conversation, but every time Debbie laughed, his chest did that weird flip again. "So," Debbie said, smiling at him over her glass of iced tea, "how's school?" Ryan shrugged. "Busy. I had to referee a dodgeball game yesterday that turned into a philosophical debate about whether dodgeball is a metaphor for life." Debbie laughed, and Ryan felt his pulse kick up. Before he could say more, Bobby piped up. "Dad's really good at sports. He could totally teach you basketball." Ryan blinked. Debbie smiled. "I'm terrible at basketball." "Perfect," Melody chirped. "Daddy can teach you." Ryan groaned inwardly. Laura looked like she was about to burst from smugness. After dinner, when dessert was served, heart-shaped cookies, because of course, Ryan found himself alone with Debbie in the kitchen while Laura wrangled the kids into a board game. "Sorry about the matchmaking circus," Ryan said, rubbing the back of his neck. Debbie smiled softly. "Honestly, it's kind of sweet." Ryan chuckled. "Sweet and terrifying." Debbie laughed, and for a moment, the world felt lighter. "I like spending time with you," she said quietly. Ryan froze, then smiled, slow, genuine, the kind he hadn't felt in years. "I like spending time with you too," he said. And just like that, Operation Cupid might have actually worked. Chapter 7, Date Night Disaster, with extra sprinkles. Ryan Bryant had faced many challenges in his 38 years. Heartbreak, single parenthood, and the time Bobby tried to microwave a Pop-Tart with the foil still on. But tonight was a whole new level of terrifying. He was going on a date. A real date. With Debbie. Ryan stood in front of the bathroom mirror, adjusting his collar for the 10th time. His reflection stared back like a man preparing for battle. Which, in a way, he was, against nerves, self-doubt, and the possibility of spilling food on himself. "Dad," Bobby said from the doorway, arms crossed like a tiny drill sergeant. "You look okay." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "Just okay." "Your hair's weird," Bobby said. Melody popped her head in, Marvin dangling from her arm. "You smell nice." Ryan chuckled. "Thanks, sweetheart." "Marvin says don't be nervous," Melody added solemnly. Ryan smiled. "Tell Marvin I'll try." The babysitting conspiracy, Laura arrived to watch the kids, armed with snacks and a grin that screamed I'm up to something. "Don't worry," she said as Ryan grabbed his keys. "We've got everything under control." Ryan narrowed his eyes. "Define control." Laura winked. "Go. Have fun." Ryan muttered something about regretting this and headed out. The date begins. The restaurant was cozy, with soft lighting and the smell of fresh bread. Debbie was already there, looking effortlessly beautiful in a simple dress that made Ryan forget how to breathe for a second. "Hi," she said, smiling shyly. "Hi," Ryan replied, his voice doing that awkward crack thing he hadn't experienced since high school. "Smooth, Bryant. Real smooth." They ordered pasta and wine, and for a while, everything felt easy. Debbie laughed at his stories about gym class disasters. Ryan listened as she talked about her work at the local library, her love for old movies, and how she once accidentally locked herself in a supply closet during a staff meeting. Ryan thought, I could listen to her forever. Meanwhile, back at home, Operation Cupid had gone rogue. Bobby and Melody, fueled by sugar and ambition, decided their dad needed extra help. Plan B, Bobby whispered, spreading crayons and paper across the floor. We write him a love note from Debbie. Melody gasped. But Debbie didn't write it. That's the genius part, Bobby said. Dad will think she likes him even more. Laura walked in, saw the chaos, and groaned. Guys, no, absolutely not. But Bobby was already scribbling. Dear Ryan, you're the best dad and the cutest guy ever. Love, Debbie. Melody added hearts. Marvin contributed by sitting on the paper. Laura buried her face in her hands. I'm going to need more wine. Back at the restaurant, Ryan and Debbie were mid-laugh when his phone buzzed. He glanced down and froze. A photo from Bobby of the note, captioned, She really likes you, Dad. Ryan nearly choked on his water. Debbie leaned over. Everything okay? Ryan turned the phone so she could see. Debbie stared, then burst out laughing so hard half the restaurant turned to look. Oh my gosh, she said between giggles. Your kids are amazing. Ryan groaned. There's something, all right. Debbie wiped her eyes, still smiling. Honestly, it's kind of adorable. Ryan felt his embarrassment melt into something warmer. Maybe this wasn't a disaster after all. The walk home. After dinner, Ryan walked Debbie to her car. The night air was cool, and for a moment, everything felt perfect. I had a great time, Debbie said softly. Me too, Ryan replied. They stood there, smiling like teenagers, until Debbie leaned in and kissed his cheek. Ryan's heart did a somersault. Good night, Ryan, she whispered. Good night, he said, watching her drive away, feeling like maybe, just maybe, he was ready for this. Chapter 8. Fear, Feelings, and Flying Cupcakes. Ryan Bryant had always considered himself a rational man. He paid bills on time, flossed regularly, and never bought extended warranties. But rationality had its limits, especially when it came to feelings. Feelings were messy. Feelings were unpredictable. Feelings were what got him burned 5 years ago. So why, as he stood in his kitchen staring at his phone, did he feel like a teenager waiting for a text? Debbie had sent a simple message. Had a great time last night. Hope you did too, smiley face. Ryan stared at it like it was written in ancient code. He wanted to reply. He should reply. But his brain was doing that thing where it played every worst-case scenario like a highlight reel. What if he wasn't good enough? What if she decided he was too complicated? What if Bobby and Melody scared her off? Dad, Bobby's voice snapped him out of his spiral. Ryan looked up to see his son standing in the doorway, holding a mixing bowl and wearing an apron that said Master of Disaster. What are you doing? Ryan asked. Making cupcakes, Bobby said. For Debbie. Ryan blinked. Why? Because you like her, Bobby said matter-of-factly. And cupcakes make people happy. Melody appeared behind him, clutching Marvin. We're helping. Ryan groaned. Guys, too late, Bobby said, dumping half a bag of flour into the bowl. A cloud of white exploded like a snowstorm. Ryan coughed. This is a terrible idea. It's a genius idea, Bobby corrected. Operation Cupid 2.0. Ryan muttered something about needing hazard pay and grabbed the broom. Later that afternoon, Ryan finally texted Debbie back, after cleaning flour off the ceiling. I had a great time too. Would you like to do it again? Her reply came fast. I'd love that. How about tomorrow? Coffee. Ryan smiled. For the first time in years, he felt hopeful. The coffee date. The cafe was quiet, sunlight streaming through big windows. Debbie was already there, sipping a latte and smiling when Ryan walked in. Hi, she said, her voice warm. Hi, Ryan replied, feeling that familiar flip in his chest. They talked about everything. Books, movies, the weird quirks of small-town life. Ryan found himself laughing more than he had in years. Then Debbie said softly, You know, I wasn't sure you'd want to see me again. Ryan frowned. Why? She shrugged. You seem cautious. Ryan hesitated. I guess I am. After the divorce, I promised myself I wouldn't let anyone hurt the kids. Or me. Debbie reached across the table, her fingers brushing his. I get that. But you're not alone, Ryan. You don't have to do everything by yourself. Something in her voice, gentle, steady, made the walls around his heart crack just a little. Meanwhile, back at home, Laura was babysitting again, which meant chaos was inevitable. Bobby and Melody decided their dad's date needed extra magic. So they baked more cupcakes, this time with sprinkles. Lots of sprinkles. Enough sprinkles to carpet the kitchen floor. When Laura walked in, she froze. What happened? Love happened, Bobby said proudly. Melody held up a cupcake that looked like a rainbow exploded. Daddy will give these to Debbie. Laura sighed. I'm going to need more wine. The twist, Ryan returned home later, feeling lighter than he had in years, only to find his kitchen looked like a unicorn crime scene. Surprise, Bobby shouted, holding out a tray of cupcakes. Ryan stared. Are those edible? Mostly, Bobby said. Ryan laughed, really laughed, and for the first time, he thought maybe life didn't have to be perfect to be good. Chapter 9. Sparks, Surprises, and Sibling Shenanigans. Ryan Bryant had never been good at planning romantic gestures. His idea of fancy was ordering extra cheese on a pizza. But tonight, he wanted to do something special for Debbie, something that said I'm trying. I care. So he cleaned the house, mostly, lit a couple of candles, after Googling how not to burn down your home, and even put Marvin the leprechaun in a chair so Melody wouldn't panic when she noticed he was missing. The kids were at Laura's for a sleepover. Ryan had triple-checked. No interruptions. No chaos. Just him and Debbie. He was nervous, sure, but also excited. For the first time in years, he felt like maybe happiness wasn't a distant dream. Maybe it was right here, knocking on his door. The evening begins. Debbie arrived wearing a soft sweater and jeans, her smile warm enough to melt Ryan's nerves. "Wow," she said, stepping inside. "Candles? You went all out." Ryan chuckled. "I googled romantic, but not creepy." This was the result. Debbie laughed, and Ryan felt that familiar flip in his chest. They settled on the couch with takeout and a movie, something light and funny. Ryan couldn't remember the last time he'd felt this relaxed. Debbie's laugh filled the room, and every time her hand brushed his heart did somersaults. The moment, halfway through the movie, Debbie turned to him, her expression soft. "I'm glad we're doing this," she said quietly. Ryan swallowed. "Me too." For a second, the world narrowed to just them. The flicker of candlelight, the hum of the TV, the warmth of her hand in his. Ryan leaned in. Debbie did too. Their lips were inches apart when, bang, the front door flew open. "Dad!" Bobby's voice rang out like a battle cry. "We need help." Ryan jerked back, nearly knocking over a candle. "What? Why, how are you here?" Laura appeared behind the kids, looking frazzled. "Long story. Short version. Amy got sick, so I brought them back." Ryan stared at Bobby and Melody, who were both wearing superhero capes and holding what looked like a hamster cage. "Why do you have a hamster?" Ryan asked, bewildered. "It's not a hamster," Bobby said proudly. "It's a guinea pig. We rescued it." Debbie bit her lip, trying not to laugh. Ryan closed his eyes. "Of course you did." Damage control. The next 20 minutes were chaos. Guinea pig introductions. Melody insisting Marvin needed to meet the new friend, and Bobby explaining their elaborate rescue mission involving a neighbor's yard and a very confused mailman. By the time Ryan got the kids settled in their rooms, the candles had burned down, the movie credits were rolling, and the romantic moment was officially dead. Ryan sighed, walking back to the living room. "Sorry about that." Debbie smiled, eyes twinkling. "Honestly, it was kind of perfect." Ryan blinked. "Perfect." She nodded. "Because it's real. This is your life, Ryan. And I like it." Ryan felt something shift inside him, something deep and certain. "Then I guess you're stuck with us," he said softly. Debbie grinned. "Sounds like a pretty great deal to me." Chapter 10. The assist nobody saw coming. Ryan Bryant had faced plenty of nerve-wracking moments in his life. Job interviews, parent-teacher conferences, and that time Bobby tried to flush a Lego spaceship down the toilet. But nothing compared to this. He was going to tell Debbie how he felt. Not just "I like you," not just "you make me laugh," but the truth, the messy, terrifying truth that had been building since the first time she smiled at him across Laura's kitchen table. He rehearsed in his head as he drove to the park where they'd agreed to meet. Simple, honest, no rambling, no weird metaphors about dodgeball being a metaphor for life. Just real. The setup, Debbie was already there, sitting on a bench under a big oak tree, sunlight catching in her hair. Ryan's heart did that somersault thing again. "Hey," she said, smiling when he approached. "Hey," Ryan replied, his voice a little rough. They started walking, kids playing in the distance, leaves crunching underfoot. Ryan tried to find the right moment, the right words. But every time he opened his mouth, his brain short-circuited. Finally, Debbie stopped and looked at him, her expression soft. "You okay?" Ryan swallowed hard. Yeah. There's something I need to say." Debbie tilted her head. "Okay." Ryan took a breath. "I like you. A lot. More than I've let myself admit. And I know my life is complicated. I've got two amazing kids who come first, always. But if you're willing to take a chance on me, on us, I'd really like that." For a second, Debbie just stared. Then her eyes shimmered, and she smiled. The kind of smile that made Ryan feel like the ground was steady again. "I've been hoping you'd say that," she whispered. Ryan felt something inside him unclench, like a knot finally loosening. He laughed, soft, shaky but real. "So that's a yes." Debbie grinned. "That's a yes." The interruption, because of course, before Ryan could savor the moment, a voice rang out like a trumpet blast. "Dad, look what we made." Ryan turned to see Bobby and Melody sprinting toward them, dragging a giant poster covered in glitter and crayon hearts. It read, "Debbie plus Dad equals love forever." Ryan groaned. Debbie laughed so hard she nearly doubled over. "Operation Cupid 3.0, Bobby announced proudly. "We wanted to make sure you didn't chicken out." Ryan rubbed his face. "You guys." Melody hugged Debbie's leg. "Are you going to be our new mommy?" Ryan froze. Debbie crouched down, smiling gently. "How about we start with being friends? Really good friends." Melody nodded solemnly. "Okay, but Marvin says you're pretty." Debbie laughed again, and Ryan thought, "Yep, this is my life, and I wouldn't trade it for anything." The ending beat. As the kids ran off to play, Ryan and Debbie sat on the bench, their hands finding each other naturally. "Sorry about the glitter," Ryan said. Debbie smiled. "Honestly, it's perfect." Ryan looked at her, at the kids laughing in the distance, and felt something he hadn't felt in years, peace. Maybe love wasn't about grand gestures or perfect timing. Maybe it was about showing up, every day, for the people who mattered. And for the first time in a long time, Ryan believed he could do that. Chapter 11. Glitter, Goodbyes, and New Beginnings. Ryan Bryant woke up to the sound of laughter, and for once, it wasn't followed by the crash of something breaking. He rolled out of bed, padded down the hall, and found Bobby and Melody in the living room, surrounded by construction paper, markers, and enough glitter to make a unicorn jealous. "What's going on?" Ryan asked, rubbing his eyes. Bobby grinned. "We're making decorations for the party." Ryan blinked. "What party?" Melody bounced in her seat. "The daddy has a girlfriend party." Ryan groaned. "Guys, relax," Bobby said, waving a glue stick like a magic wand. "It's just us, Aunt Laura, Grandma, Grandpa, and Debbie." Ryan froze. "Debbie's coming?" "Yep," Melody chirped. Marvin invited her. Ryan stared at the stuffed leprechaun sitting in a chair with a glitter crown. Of course he did. The family gathering. By late afternoon, Ryan's house looked like a craft store exploded. Streamers hung from the ceiling, balloons bobbed in corners, and a banner, handmade by Bobby, read, "Welcome to the Love Club." Ryan considered hiding in the garage, but then Debbie walked in, and suddenly the chaos didn't matter. She smiled at him, warm and easy, like she belonged here. And maybe she did. Laura hugged Debbie like a long-lost sister. Cynthia beamed like she'd personally orchestrated a royal wedding. Grant, stoic as ever, just muttered, "About time," and handed Ryan a beer. Ryan laughed, shaking his head. "You're all insane." "Insanely supportive," Laura corrected. The moment that mattered, later, when the kids were busy showing Debbie their glitter masterpieces and Marvin's new throne, Ryan stepped outside for a breath of cool evening air. Debbie followed, her smile soft in the glow of porch lights. "Quite the party," she said. Ryan chuckled. "You have no idea." They stood there for a moment, listening to the muffled laughter inside. Then Ryan turned to her, his voice quiet but sure. "I don't know where this goes," he said, "but I know I want you in it." Debbie's eyes shimmered. "Me too." Ryan reached for her hand, and when their fingers intertwined, it felt like the start of something good, something real. Inside, chaos reigns. "Dad," Bobby yelled from the doorway, "we need you to judge the glitter contest." Ryan laughed, squeezing Debbie's hand. "Duty calls." Debbie grinned. "Go be the hero." Ryan walked back inside, surrounded by family, laughter, and more glitter than any sane person should allow. And for the first time in years, he felt whole. Because love wasn't about perfect timing or grand gestures. It was about showing up, messy, complicated, and real. And Ryan Bryant was ready for all of it. Epilogue: love, laughter, and lawn ornaments. 6 months later, Ryan Bryant had learned 3 important things. 1. Debbie made the best pancakes in the county. 2. Bobby and Melody were professional-level schemers. 3. Love didn't make life perfect, it made it hilarious. It was a sunny Saturday morning, and Ryan was sipping coffee on the porch while Debbie wrangled Marvin into a tiny tuxedo for Melody's leprechaun wedding. Bobby was in the yard, hammering something into the ground with suspicious enthusiasm. Ryan squinted. "Bobby, what are you doing?" "Surprise," Bobby yelled, stepping back to reveal a massive, glitter-covered sign that read, "Congrats on the engagement." Ryan choked on his coffee. "What?" Debbie froze mid-bow tie. "Engagement." Bobby grinned. "Not yet, but you will be. We're just getting ahead of the curve." Ryan groaned. "Buddy, you can't just—" "Too late," Bobby shouted. "I already told Grandma." As if on cue, Cynthia's car pulled into the driveway, Laura right behind her, both carrying balloons and cake. Grant followed with a cooler and a smirk that said, "I knew this was coming." Ryan buried his face in his hands. "This is my life." Debbie laughed so hard she nearly dropped Marvin. "Honestly, I love your life." Ryan looked at her, at the chaos unfolding in his yard, and smiled. The kind of smile that said he wouldn't change a thing. Because in the Bryant household, love came with glitter, leprechauns, and family who planned your engagement before you even bought a ring. And Ryan? He was okay with that. The Yindy, or maybe, the beginning of something even bigger.